My father tells one story that there was so much snow along the road that he actually had to cross the mountains at the Great Sand Dunes from Walsenburg across the Great Sand Dunes, and then came back to Cuesta that way one time. Eliseo Rael bought the Plazuela in Cuesta. It was a big family square, and part of that is still standing. It's Pancho Ortiz's house. It's where Tia Florinda lived. Grandpa lived there, and Eliseo raised his family there. And Eliseo was, again, he was quite successful in the sheep business. His sons also started in the sheep business. Our grandpa, Enriquez, was 23 years old when he also had this ranch here that we're standing on now. And he was already quite successful at age 23. Grandpa was educated by the Mormons in Menasa. And he knew business. He knew both English and Spanish. And he married Grandma when he was 23. Grandma was 17. Grandma came from also a successful ranching family in Cerro, the Bomases. The Grandpa tried various things. Grandpa had this beautiful ranch here. Grandpa had they had a flour mill over by where on the Otra Banda, or the Son Chavanda here in Cuesta, by where Frank Gallegos, the cop, lives. In that field next there, they had a molino where they were grinding flour. Grandpa and his brothers started a business. Grandpa and his brothers, they each had their own ranches, but their ranches combined made them one of the most powerful families in northern New Mexico. They were running literally thousands of sheep together, and they were trying to homestead on now what we call the Otra Banda, the west side of the Rio Grande. Grandpa had a homestead there that my father wrote about quite a bit, and the homestead, it was pretty rough. They had to take burros down to the Rio Grande and fill barrels with water and pull the burros up the canyon, and that was just the water for them. Every other day they'd have to drive the sheep down to the river to drink water and then drive them up. So it was a lot of work. It wasn't easy. There weren't cars, so they had to get out there on horses, and the only way to get there was either going around through Antonito or crossing at what we now call the John Dunn Bridge. But it wasn't the John Dunn Bridge, it was really the Rael Bridge. The Raels from Arroyo Hondo were running that bridge at the time as a toll bridge. Tomita Rael actually has the papers show that it was their bridge at the time. One of the stories that Grandpa has is they were about 3 years old, I think. Lala was coming with them on Cabro de Caballo, and there were dead horses along the way as they were coming down the canyon. What it was, I think his name was Juan Rayen, would charge a toll for every animal that would cross, and there was an American, a Tejano they called him, who had tried to rush the horses, and he pulled out his .30-30 and he started shooting horses, and he actually thought that he had killed the Tejano. On the Raels from Arroyo Hondo, their story is that Juan thought that, well, it was actually Mambi, Arthur Mambi, who had done it, and they thought that he had killed Mambi. Later on, Mambi was a big thief here in Taos. Later on, they found Mambi decapitated in his house with the doors locked. Oh, he was a land swindler. Oh. Yeah, Ponzi scheme type things. So that was it. They, no, same thing though. So Richard had also asked to talk a little bit about the Jewish heritage. So Alonso Rayen, before he came to New Mexico, he didn't use the Rael name. He'd go by Aguilar. And it's because Spain had if you were Jewish or Arab in Spain or Muslim in Spain and you didn't convert, you were either killed, imprisoned, or you had to convert. And in reality, you weren't even allowed to travel to the New World. I'm going to stand under here somewhere. And you weren't allowed to travel to the New World, but because New Mexico was so remote and Spain wanted settlers in New Mexico because of the French incursion into this area, that they were actually allowing the converted Jews to the furthest parts of the kingdom, which happened to be New Mexico. When Rael came, once he got to El Paso, that's when he started using the Rael name, and that's one of the things that historians say that kind of relate that Rael most likely was crypto-Jew. And crypto-Jews are Jews who never really converted, that still practice some of the practices. In fact, in New Mexico, they even sent a couple of governors back in chains to Mexico City to be tried by the Inquisition because they were practicing, as the charges were, the laws of Moses. They've actually studied the Rael family back to in Spain, and they've gone as far as 1540, and that's when one of the Raels actually converted. Now they have never really said what he converted from, but of course everyone suspects that it was from Judaism. So in New Mexico, there's actually a good portion of like the Gomez family is another name that is considered a crypto-Jew, Rael, because it comes from Israel. Some of the others, can you think of? So in New Mexico,
Aguilar, I think even.
Aguilar, there was a concentration of New Mexico of people who had no other. If they would have stayed in Spain, they would have continued to be prosecuted. So the best thing was to get as far away from Spain and come to New Mexico, and that's basically one of the reasons we got here. Questions?
So,
How did we get here?
so is it true that when back in the days of Don Diego de Vargas and they had all those, like you say, Alonso Royal, what I heard about the history of Santa Fe is that the more rowdier and the more trouble you cause in the city of Santa Fe, the further they sent you north. Is that true?
That's kind of true. So that kind of ties into the land grants.
Why we're here in
Yeah, that's why we're here. So,
Troublemakers.
yeah.